Hi everybody, today we're going to make hot cross scones ready for Easter. So we're going to learn the method of rubbing in. So to start off with, what we need to do is take our butter, which this is 80 grams of butter, and slice it into small cubes. The butter's very cold, straight out of the fridge. And what we're going to do is add this butter to 2 cups of sifted self-raising flour. Now the idea of the method of rubbing in is to coat the flour with fat or butter. And this is so that we can have a light crumbly mixture rather than melting the butter in or creaming it in. We're keeping things light and crumbly. So we need to rub between our fingertips only because we're not trying to melt the butter, we're trying to keep the butter nice and cold. So it acts as shortening. The fat is our shortening agent, which is what makes things crumbly, like pastry and scones. So this might take you 3 or 4 minutes, and we want our mixture to end up resembling bread crumbs. Ready? Okay, so here's our mixture which resembles fine breadcrumbs. There's no big lumps of butter, it's all mixed in together. The next ingredient I need to add is my icing sugar. This is 2 tablespoons of icing sugar, and that just adds a nice sweetness to our scone. You don't always add sugar to scones, but this recipe does. Okay, so I need a wooden spoon. So I'm going to mix the icing sugar in with my butter and flour. Oh, actually, I think I'm going to add my chopped chips to my mixture as well, so that they're evenly incorporated, and then make my well in the center, and I'm going to add my milk. Now I'm going to gradually add the milk and hold a little bit back just to make sure I get the consistency right, rather than adding it all at once. So I think that's still a little bit dry, so I can definitely add a little bit more milk. So that is half a cup of milk I've added in total. And we want this to come together, but not be too wet. So it's starting to come together. All right, so let me have a feel. So it feels good, it's not sticky. And I think if I turn this onto a lightly floured surface, it should be able to come together quite nicely. Let's have a look. So I'm going to lightly knead my dough, which means I fold it in half and give it a little push. And we want it just to come together nicely, not over kneading it. So I'm using the palm of my hand now to do the kneading, rather than my fingertips that I used for rubbing in. Okay. So the next step is to roll out my dough. It's come together into a nice ball. I can have a little bit more just a little bit of flour on the surface so it doesn't stick. So I've got a nice ball here, and I'm going to use, if you don't have a rolling pin, that's okay, you could actually just flatten it out with your palm. But I'm going to use my rolling pin with a little tiny bit of flour on top. And I'm just going to roll it from the middle towards the outsides. And I'm moving it just to make sure it doesn't stick to my bench top. Now, because these are scones, I don't want them super thin, they're not a cookie. Now, I've got a scone cookie cutter, which I can use, but if you don't have this, you could also use just a cup, a glass, and you could try that instead. Just a bit harder to get them out, but there we go, perfect. So you could choose whichever one you wish. I'll fit one more. Now with leftover dough, I can bring it back together Give it another very light knead until it's smooth, and then start the process again. So making into a round ball, a light roll with the rolling pin, and then I'll probably get another 2 scones, maybe 1. Okay. And maybe the last one, you can just shape it into a little ball as best you can into the shape that we need. So it might not be exact, but that is okay. All right, so there I've got about 6 scones, maybe a little bit more. And what I need to do now is brush this scone with a little bit of milk. So I've just got a pastry brush, and if you didn't have a pastry brush, you could just use your fingertips. And this helps to make our scones turn golden brown once you've got the heat of the oven. So it's called the Maillard reaction, which makes things caramelly and nice and brown in color. So I'm going to put them into a very hot oven. My oven needs to be at 220 degrees Celsius for this. So it's a nice hot oven. They're going to go in there, and we'll wait and see how they turn out. Okay, so we're going to check our scones have been in the oven for 10 to 12 minutes, and they've turned nice and golden brown on top. So I'm going to take them out and put them onto a cooling rack. If you want to make crosses for your hot cross scones, you will need to add 2 tablespoons of plain flour. Roll it off on top. 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder, as well as 1 tablespoon of caster sugar. Put them all together in a bowl, give them a stir, and we're going to add 2 tablespoons of warm water to that mixture. So mine looks a little bit dry. I'm going to add some more water. You can hear that. Okay, rewind. Pretend like my water's. Can you go to that?
No.
We can cut it though, can't we? Start again, and we'll pretend like the first lot of water was fine. So your mixture will come together like this, and we've got a nice chocolate paste. Now to pipe this onto your hot cross scones, we're going to actually use a Ziploc bag as your piping bag. So you're going to take all of this mixture and pop it inside the piping bag, seal it up, and then we're going to take a pair of scissors. Now you've got to be very careful to make a very, very small cut. And then squeeze that bag so that your mixture is going to come out the end. Our final step is to pipe our cross onto our scone. So you want to squeeze all your mixture down into one corner, and then hold it a little bit away from the actual scone, so you're sort of drawing it across. But it's about ½ centimetre above the actual scone. And you're going to make a cross shape onto each one. So there you are, ready to enjoy your hot cross scones.